I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and for almost 6 years I was married to Lisa. She was always the type to act like she was the queen of the world, bitchy, sarcastic, sharp-tongued, but I loved her because she had this fire about her. We met in college, hit it off immediately, and I thought we were solid. I was working as a project manager at a decent company, and she was a marketing executive. Things seemed perfect, or at least that's what I thought. In the beginning, everything was smooth. We had our routines, weekends together, date nights, occasional trips. Lisa was a little moody sometimes, but I chalked it up to her being stressed from her job or maybe just being a woman. Still, things changed a few months ago, and I didn't quite notice it at first. She started working late more often, claiming she had to finish some big campaign or client presentation. I didn't think much of it because she was always busy. But then little things started to creep in that didn't sit right with me. She'd leave her phone around more often. But I wasn't one to snoop. Still, I noticed she'd be texting at times I wasn't looking, quick, secretive glances. She'd get defensive if I asked about her phone, say I was being paranoid or insecure. I brushed it off because I didn't want to overthink. But then, last week, I caught her in a lie about where she was going after work. She said she was meeting a friend, but her stories didn't match up with the times or locations she gave. I pressed her and she snapped at me saying I was being jealous and insecure, that I was just imagining things. That night I decided to check her phone. No, I don't think I was right to do it, but I was desperate for some clarity. I figured if she was hiding stuff, I'd find it. And I did. I found a string of texts on her phone that knocked me flat. They were from her boss, Kevin, and they weren't just work-related. It was obvious they were something more than that. Flirty stuff, references to seeing her tonight, plans to meet up after hours, and even some explicit messages that made my stomach churn. I couldn't believe my eyes. Lisa had been lying to me for months, and now I had proof. I couldn't even breathe when I saw it. My mind went blank, then started racing. How long has this been going on? How could I be so oblivious? I always thought I knew her, but now I felt like a fool. I had trusted her more than anyone in the world, and she was cheating on me with her boss, the guy she used to brag about as being so successful and so sexy. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was, clear as day. I stared at her messages, feeling every ounce of betrayal piercing through me. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't even know what to say or how to start. All I knew was that this was the worst pain I've ever felt, like someone had taken a knife and twisted it right into my chest. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a knot in my stomach that refused to go away. I stayed up most of the night, just staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I found and trying to make sense of it. How could she lie so easily? How could she look me in the eyes and pretend everything was fine? I was furious, but there was also this crushing sadness. I had always thought we were good, maybe even happy, and now I was realizing it was all a big lie. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or do something I'd regret, but I knew I couldn't stay quiet. I had to talk to her. So, I waited until she left for work, then I called her. Her voice on the phone was clipped and cold. She just asked what I wanted like she already knew. I told her I knew about her and Kevin. There was silence on the line, then she started with the usual bullshit, "Mike, you're overthinking." Or, "It's nothing, you're just being paranoid." She called me insecure and accused me of mistrusting her like I was the problem here. I didn't buy her excuses, not anymore. I told her I saw the messages and I wanted the truth straight up. That's when she started to scream at me, saying I was crazy, that I was jealous of her success, and that Kevin was just her boss. She said they'd only gone out a few times, that it was nothing, that I was making it into a big deal. But I didn't believe her, and honestly, I didn't care what her excuses were anymore. I just wanted her to admit it. She tried to turn the tables, saying I was the one who had been distant lately, that I didn't pay enough attention, that I was just insecure. She called me a lot of things: controlling, paranoid, a terrible husband. But I couldn't listen to her anymore. I felt this rush of anger and heartbreak crashing over me simultaneously. How many nights had she lied to me? How many times did she come home pretending everything was fine? I was just so damn hurt, and I didn't know what to do with all this rage and sadness boiling inside. That day, I decided to come home early from work. I wanted to see her face, hear her lie to me in person. When I walked in, everything felt different, like I was entering a war zone. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her face cold and dismissive. I told her I knew everything. Her eyes widened for a second, then she gave me this bitchy smirk and said, "So what? You're overreacting as usual." I couldn't take it. I just looked at her and told her I was done. Done with her lies, her cheating, her pretending we were some kind of perfect couple. She rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting, that I was crazy for jumping to conclusions. That's when I snapped. I told her I wanted her to explain what the hell was going on, and I wanted her to be honest for once. She looked at me like I was some kind of idiot, then spat out a bunch of excuses, said she never meant for it to go this far, that she was just lonely and Kevin was really good in bed, and that she was tired of pretending everything was fine. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. The woman I trusted most was cheating on me, and she didn't even care enough to deny it anymore. Instead, she just sneered and told me I was being ridiculous. That was the moment I knew I had to get out of there. I couldn't stay with someone who lied so effortlessly, who stole my trust and crushed it. I told her I wanted her out of the house, not that it mattered much. I was already planning my next move. The whole day was a blur. Sadness kept creeping in, but there was also this fierce determination to end it. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay anymore. The woman I married, the one I loved, she had betrayed me so badly, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayals I never saw coming. After she finally left, I didn't even know what to do with myself. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where she'd been just moments ago, feeling like my world had shattered into a million pieces. All those years I thought we had, her smiling, lying, sneaking around behind my back. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I was so blind to the woman I thought I knew. The betrayal cut so deep it was like a physical pain, and yet I knew I couldn't just let it consume me. I spent the next few hours trying to piece everything together. Part of me wanted to call her, to demand answers, to make her admit she'd been lying all along. But I knew that would just give her the chance to twist everything, to make me doubt myself even more. Instead, I started to think about what I wanted going forward. I couldn't stay in this misery, not like this. I had to do something, anything, to take control of the situation. That's when I decided to dig even deeper. I knew this wasn't just about some stupid text messages. It was about trust, respect, and the fact that my wife was willing to cheat on me with her boss, a guy I knew she used to brag about being so successful and hot. I wanted to know everything, the full extent of her lies, how long this had been going on, what she was really feeling. I also knew I needed proof, something concrete I could hold onto, especially if I decided to end things for good. So I started searching her phone again, scanning through her messages and her social media. I found some more hidden texts, even some pictures she'd sent Kevin, which made me feel sick. But what really got to me was the way they talked about me, like I was just some idiot who didn't matter. They called me controlling, insecure, and worse. Kevin even joked about how lucky Lisa was to have someone like him, and she responded with some trash about how she needed a real man, but Kevin was better in bed. Reading that, I felt my stomach turn to ice. I wasn't just betrayed, I was humiliated. I started to think about how to confront her again. Not just with words, but with something more. I wanted her to see I knew everything, that I wasn't some naive fool. I also realized I needed to prepare for the worst, because I knew she'd lie, deny, and try to make me doubt myself. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't just some fool who got played. I was done being her doormat, her fool, her punching bag. Meanwhile, the anger was building up inside me. I'd always been the calm one, the rational one, but now I felt an urge to do something drastic. I thought about calling Kevin, seeing what he had to say, if he even cared about the damage he caused. I thought about going through her things, maybe even calling a lawyer. But mostly I just wanted her to know I wasn't going to stand for this. I was going to fight for myself, for whatever dignity I had left. Because I knew one thing. I'd been betrayed by the one person I trusted most in this world, and I wasn't going to let her or Kevin get away with it without consequences. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, thinking about everything she'd said, everything I'd found, and what it all meant. I kept going over her lies, her smirks, the way she'd look at me like I was the one at fault. Deep down, I knew I had to decide what to do next, but I felt frozen, caught between anger, heartbreak, and a desperate need for justice. I decided I couldn't just confront her again off the cuff. If I was going to do this, I had to be strategic. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. She'd pushed me to the edge, and I was ready. Take control. So I planned my move carefully. I started gathering more evidence, screenshots of the texts, her secret social media accounts, even some photos I found that proved she'd been sneaking around for a while. The more I looked, the more I realized I'd been blind to the truth all along. I knew she'd tried to deny everything, spin some story about how it was just sex or how Kevin was just a coworker who got in her head. That's what she's good at, lying, manipulating, making me doubt myself. But I wasn't going to let her do that anymore. I needed her to face what she'd done, see the damage she caused, and understand that I wasn't going to be her punching bag or her fool any longer. So the next day I surprised her. I called her at work, told her I was coming home early. When she got there, I had everything laid out. Her phone, the screenshots, all the proof I'd collected. I told her I knew about her affair with Kevin, that I saw the texts, the pictures, everything. Her face froze, and for a second, she just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then she started with her usual bullshit, saying I was crazy, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was paranoid and insecure. She even tried to turn it around, saying I was the one who'd been distant and cold lately. But I stared her down. I told her I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let her deny it anymore. That's when she finally snapped. She told me I was ruining everything, that I was overreacting, and that I was just jealous because she was successful and attractive. That's when I saw the real her, the woman who'd been lying to my face for months. I felt this surge of rage and sadness at once. How could she sit there and lie so effortlessly? How could she pretend she loved me, then cheat on me with her boss? I told her I wanted her out of the house. I couldn't stand being near her anymore. I told her I was done with the lies, done with pretending everything was okay. I said I deserved better than this, that she'd broken my trust beyond repair. She just sneered, rolling her eyes, and kept spouting her stupid excuses. But I didn't listen. I knew I had to get out of that toxic space and start healing, even if it meant hurting her in the process. That moment was a revelation. I finally saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd thrown away everything we had for some fleeting sex and some ego boost. I felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak, like I'd been freed but also lost something precious. I made up my mind then and there. I'd leave, I'd cut ties, and I'd rebuild my life from scratch. No more lies, no more pretending. I'd learn from this mess and I'd come out stronger, even if right now it just felt like I was barely holding on. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I moved out of the house, packed my things, and booked a cheap apartment nearby. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get some space from the nightmare that was my marriage. Honestly, I felt like I was walking around in a daze. Part of me still couldn't believe she actually did it. Cheated on me with her boss. The woman I trusted more than anyone. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? How did I not realize she'd be capable of doing something so cruel? At first, I went through every possible emotion: anger, sadness, betrayal, frustration. I hated her for the lies, hated Kevin for encouraging her, but more than anything, I hated myself for not noticing sooner. I replayed every moment we spent together, every sign I missed, every time she brushed me off or snapped at me. I kept wondering if I'd been blind or just too in love to see the truth. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about blame anymore. It was about accepting that our relationship was beyond repair, that the woman I loved had betrayed me so deeply she destroyed whatever trust we had left. I also started to realize I wasn't alone in feeling like this. My friends, my family, everyone told me to be strong, to look out for myself, and to remember my worth. It was hard to believe I deserved better, especially when I felt so broken inside. Still, I knew I had to start putting myself first. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. For a while, I just wanted silence, distance. some space to breathe and think. I also reached out to a lawyer. I knew I'd have to deal with the aftermath, possibly divorce, dividing assets, or even taking some legal action if she tried to screw me over. It was all so overwhelming. I never thought I'd be the guy who ended up in a situation like this, but here I was. And honestly, I didn't see a way back. I was angry at her for tearing apart what we had, but I was also furious at myself for trusting her that much. The reality hit me hard. I'd loved her, built my life around her, and she'd thrown it all away. It was a bitter pill to swallow. Most nights I'd lie in that empty apartment replaying everything, trying to figure out how I got here. I was hurt, yes, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I saw her for who she really was, selfish, manipulative, careless with my heart. I realized I'd been clinging to a dream, a fantasy of what we used to be, instead of facing the brutal truth. That realization made me angry again, but it also gave me a faint glimmer of strength. I knew I had to rebuild. I had to start over, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. So I made a promise to myself. I'd heal. I'd learn from this betrayal and grow stronger. I'd find someone who genuinely cared, who respected me, not someone who lied, cheated, and tore my life apart. I don't know what's next, but I know I can't stay stuck in this pain forever. I just hope one day I'll look back at this and see it as the moment I finally took control of my life. That's what I'm holding on to now. Hope that better days are coming, even if they seem so far away right now. Eventually, I started to pick up the pieces. It wasn't easy. Some days were worse than others, and the pain of betrayal lingered like a bad scar. But I forced myself to move forward. I threw myself into work, tried to reconnect with friends I'd neglected during the chaos, and slowly began to rebuild my sense of self. The anger didn't completely go away, but I learned to channel it into something productive. I realized that I'd spent so many years giving her my trust, my love, my everything, only to have it shattered in the worst way. But I also learned that I deserved better. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who wasn't going to cheat me out of my happiness. Looking back, I see this whole experience as a brutal lesson. It's something I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it's also made me stronger, more aware of my own worth. I've come to accept that sometimes people you trust the most will let you down. You can't control their actions, only how you respond. And I chose to respond by walking away, picking up what's left of myself, and trying to find the light after the darkness. I won't pretend I've fully healed yet. There are still nights when I think about her, about what we lost, about all the times I trusted her blindly. But I know now that it's okay to feel broken for a while. The key is to keep going, to keep fighting for yourself even when everything seems to fall apart. I've learned that the worst betrayals can teach you the most about who you really are. As for Lisa and Kevin, their story is theirs now, not mine. I've cut them both out of my life entirely. I don't wish them any ill, but I refuse to let their actions define me. I've found my own strength in this mess, and I plan to use it to build a better future. Maybe someday I'll find someone who values me for who I am, who can give me the trust and respect I deserve. Until then, I'll keep moving forward one step at a time. This whole experience has changed me, no doubt, but in a strange way, it's also freed me. I've learned not to take love for granted, not to ignore the signs, and most importantly, not to lose myself in someone else's lies. I'll carry this pain with me, but I won't let it define my future. Because at the end of the day, I know my worth, and I refuse to let anyone take that away from me again.